Wall-E. A little robot called Wall-E moved through the mountains of trash on planet Earth. The people escaped a long time ago when Earth became too dirty and dangerous. They all went to live on a big space station and left behind a lot of robots to clean the planet. Now Wall-E was the only robot on Earth. Soon, Wall-E arrived at his home, an old truck. He heard the sound of a storm and he closed the door quickly. Wall-E's home had pretty lights and shelves full of interesting things. He took out some swords, some things which he found in the trash. That day, he put them carefully on the shelves. Then he watched his favorite movie. A man and a woman danced and held hands in the movie. Wall-E loved it and watched it again and again. He wanted to hold hands and dance like the people in the movie, but more than anything, he wanted a friend. The next day, Wall-E went out to work. Every day he put trash into his chest and squashed it to make it neat cubes. He often found interesting things in the trash. This time he found a lighter and an old boot. He put them into a case on his back. Then he saw an old refrigerator. He opened the door and found something small and green inside. He really liked the green thing. He put it carefully into the boot. Just then Wall-E saw a strange red light at his feet. The light raced away and he ran after it. Then he saw a lot more red lights. Suddenly there was a loud noise above him and Wall-E looked up. The lights were from a big spaceship. It nearly landed on Wall-E. A big metal arm came out of the spaceship. The arm put something on the ground. It was white and round. The spaceship took off and Wall-E hid behind a rock. The white thing started to fly about like a bird. Sometimes it stopped and scanned things with a blue light. It flew near to Wall-E. Now he could see what it was, a female robot with big blue eyes. She was very beautiful. He moved to hide behind another rock, but he made a noise. The robot turned and shot the rock with her arm. Kaboom! Wall-E was scared, but he was okay. The white robot saw him at last. She flew towards him and scanned him with her blue lights. A little later, she asked, "Name?" At first, Wall-E did not understand, but then he answered, "Wall-E." The white robot then said her name, Eve. "Eva? Eva? Eva?" said Wall-E. Eve laughed. Suddenly Wall-E heard the wind. It was another storm. Wall-E took Eve to his truck. Wall-E showed Eve a lot of things in his truck. Then he showed her his favorite movie. She watched the people singing and dancing. Wall-E copied the dancing for Eve. He turned around and round. Eve tried to dance too. She turned very fast and hit Wall-E. She broke one of his eyes. Everything was okay because Wall-E found a new eye on one of his shelves. Eve picked up the lighter from the shelves. She held it up and Wall-E moved closer. She looked so beautiful in the light. Wall-E wanted to hold her hand, but he was too shy. He wanted to find something interesting for Eve. Then he suddenly remembered the small green thing. He held up the boot with the green thing inside. Eve looked very surprised to see a plant. Then something very strange happened. First, Eve scanned the plant with her blue light. Then two doors in her chest opened and the light pulled the plant inside. Next, her arms and head closed into her body. A green light shone from her chest. "Eva," Wall-E shouted, but she could not hear him. "Eva," she called him again, but Eve could not move. What could Wally do to help his new friend? Wall-E tried a lot of different things to wake her up. He took her for long walks, he sat with her for hours, nothing worked. The next day, Wall-E had to leave Eve and go to work. He just did his job and nothing more. He did not look for things in the trash, he could only think about Eve. Suddenly, he heard a loud noise and saw a red light in the sky. Was it another storm? No, it was not a storm. It was the big spaceship. A robot arm came out of the spaceship and picked up Eve. Wally raced towards the spaceship. "Eva, Eva!" he cried, but he was too late. Then the doors closed and Wally jumped on the side of the spaceship. The spaceship took off and Wally held on with his small metal hands. The spaceship flew by the moon, stars and planets. It flew near Saturn and Wally touched its ring. Soon he saw something big and white in front of him. It was the Axiom, the space station where the people from the Earth now lived. The spaceship landed on the Axiom. The doors opened and Wally saw some white robots with Eve. Eve was the only one with the green light. A robot arm picked up Eve and put her on the Axiom. Wall-E sat with the other white robots and the arm picked him up too. Some little robots arrived. They cleaned the robots from the ship. A little robot called M.O. tried to clean Wall-E. He looked very dirty. A smaller robot called Gopher arrived. He was the captain's robot. He scanned all the white robots. When he scanned Eve, an alarm started. It made a terrible noise. Gopher jumped quickly into a truck and drove away with Eve. Wall-E raced after them and M.O. ran behind. He still wanted to clean Wall-E. Soon they arrived on the deck of the Axiom. There were people everywhere, but they were not like the people in Wall-E's favorite movie. They were much bigger, softer, and rounder. They could not walk, so they went everywhere in chairs. They all had TV screens in front of their faces. They looked very bored. The truck arrived outside the captain's room. The doors opened and Gopher drove inside. Wally followed the truck, then he hid in a corner. In the center of the room was a big wheel. It was a robot called Otto, and he was the Axiom pilot. He was there to help the captain, but he decided everything. Otto scanned Eve. A picture of a plant appeared on his computer screen. He had to call the captain. The captain arrived. He looked at Eve and saw the picture of the plant on the computer screen. He pushed a big green button and a man appeared on the screen. "Hello, Captain," the man said. "I have fantastic news. If a plant can grow on Earth, people can live there too. You can all go home. Just put the plant in the detector. The Axiom will take you home in no time." The captain was excited, but he wanted to see the plant and put it in the detector. The doors in Eve's chest opened, but there was no plant inside. Wally came out and looked everywhere for the plant. Otto scanned Eve again, but he could not find anything. "This robot is broken," he told the captain. "Send her to the robot hospital," said the captain. Then he pointed at Wall-E, "and clean this robot." Wall-E and Eve arrived at the robot hospital. It was full of sick and broken robots. A small pink robot jumped in front of Wall-E and painted his face. She held up a mirror. "Oh, you look so pretty," he said. They put Wall-E in a room next to a very sick robot. Then they put Eve in another room. They held her down and took off her arm. Wall-E saw everything through the glass walls. He had to save her. Wall-E broke through the glass and went into Eve's room. He picked up her arm and shot into the air. Bang, bang! Seconds later, lots of broken robots raced into the room. They picked up Wall-E and carried him out of the hospital. Eve flew after them. Suddenly, some police robots arrived. Eve flew down and picked up Wall-E and her arm. The broken robot stopped the police robots so Eve and Wally could escape. Eve took Wally to a little rocket on the side of the axiom. She wanted to save her friend. She pointed at a rocket and said, "Earth." Wally went in and sat down. He pointed at the seat next to him. "Eva," he said softly. Eve pointed at the green light in her chest. She said she had to stay and find the plant. Wally raced out of the rocket. He did not want to go anywhere without Eve. Just then they heard a noise. It was Gopher. Wally and Eve hid in the dark outside the little rocket. Gopher opened the doors in his chest and took out the plant. He put it in the rocket and came out. Eve was very surprised, but now she understood. It was Gopher who stole the plant. She turned to Wally, but he was not there. He was in the rocket. He went to get the plant. "Wally!" Eve shouted, but it was too late. Gopher pushed a button and the rocket took off with Wally and the plant. Eve jumped into another rocket and took off too. Wally was scared. He pushed a lot of buttons, then he pushed the wrong button. "This rocket will explode in 10 seconds, said a robot voice. The rocket exploded and threw Wally into space. Eve flew out of her rocket and caught Wally with her arm. Wally and Eve danced together in space. Then Wally opened the door in his chest and showed the plant to Eve. She was so happy, so she gave Wally a robot kiss. Soon they were back on the axiom. Eve wanted to take the plant to the captain, so she showed Wally a trash chute. It went up to the captain's room. Eve went into the chute and Wally waited for her. Eve flew up the chute and took the plant to the captain. He was surprised but very happy. "Turn on the plant detector," he told Otto. "We are going home." "No," Otto shouted. "We are staying here. Give me the plant." "No," answered the captain. "I am the captain and we are going home today." Suddenly, Gopher raced into the room. He took the plant and threw it into the trash chute. Then he threw Eve into the chute too. Wally went to find Eve. He climbed up the chute. He caught the plant, but he could not catch Eve. They fell down the chute and landed in a mountain of trash. Some big robots picked up the trash and squashed it into cubes. Wally and Eve were into the cubes. Quickly, Eve shot through the cube and escaped. Then she pulled Wally from his cube. He was badly broken, but he still had the plant. In the captain's room, Otto still did not want to turn on the detector. He did not want anything to change. He did not want to go back to Earth. The captain had an idea. Secretly, he turned on the computer and started to talk. His face appeared on every screen on the axiom. "Eve, the detector is near the swimming pool. Put the plant inside." Then, for the first time in his life, he stood up and walked toward Otto. The captain fought bravely with Otto and won. He pushed the robot away and turned on the detector. Eve flew with Wally to the swimming pool and put the plant in the detector. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. The axiom landed on Earth and the door opened. The captain and all the people looked at their true home. They stood up and walked slowly out of the axiom to their new life. Eve flew with Wally to his truck and charged his broken parts. Wally looked at Eve with his new eyes. At first he could not remember her, but then she gave him a kiss and he remembered. "Eva," he said softly. Eve held Wally's hand and looked into his eyes. She loved him and he loved her. At last, Wally had everything he ever wanted.